All right, it's RSE time. Explain to us, Penny, what is that all about?
Okay, so RSE stands for Relationships and Sexuality Education. So it's one of the topics that people who follow me know that I talk about a bit. I wish I didn't have to talk about it quite so much, to be honest.
I've heard it before.
Yeah, you've heard it once or twice before.
But here we are again.
Yep.
But there's something important today.
So yeah, a couple of days before the school holidays that we're in at the moment in April 2025, the Ministry of Education launched a consultation of the framework of the changes. So Winston Peters has been campaigning, New Zealand First has been campaigning on the removal and replacement of the guidelines. So we're getting little bits and pieces about that. Then they have put a consultation out. Lots of people are having a look at it down into the detail. Today I'm not going to do that. Today I'm going to do something different. I'm going to pull all the way out and look at it from a much higher level and from a parent-focused point of view rather than a Ministry of Education's focused point of view.
All right, pulling all the way out. I suppose parents' level is the most important level anyway, so that's where it really matters.
Well, you know, there's been lots of consultations and lots of things fired out from the government in the last, few months in particular that are coming out at crazy times like over the summer period and things, and then a consultation. And I feel that what's going on is that we keep having to be in react mode. We're keeping having to go, oh my gosh, there's another document. We're all got to analyse it. We're all got to go in. Mm-hmm. And it's draining. I feel like the people in the world that I live in are quite drained by the constant battle for common sense and having things thrown at them and having to sift through. So we've had that with the gene tech bill. You know, we've had that with the puberty blocker stuff. We've had that with lots of different things. And it's very policy focused, like waiting for the government to do something and then having to analyse it. So I think for me, I feel happier when I'm thinking, well, what is the right thing to do? Right?
Yeah, also, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the media lately, which is sort of a distraction from these sort of things. Because if you can really get a handle on this, you're bringing back control into your family about what your children are going through, rather than being distracted by what someone in the Green Party's doing.
Yeah, rather than looking outside, is actually going, well, instead of, because it's react, drama. It's like, what is going on for me? You know, so I talk to parents all the time who have children that are struggling, or they know of children that are struggling from what's going on. So instead of looking at all of the lines and, you know, the information coming out, and we are going to look at some, but I'm not going to just analyse it line by line, is actually go, what makes sense?
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and do it that way.
Cool. And
we'll see how we go. We are going to be looking at documents, but I'm not sitting here analysing each section of the draft framework that's coming out.
Well, honestly, you've taken us through some really in-depth stuff in the past.
Yeah.
And so I suppose this becomes more workable action points now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and examples of what's actually going on at the grassroots with the parents.
Right.
Yeah, and what we can do about that. So we'll kick into it.
Cool.
First thing that we're going to look at is an Official Information Act response from the Ministry of Education to Erica Stanford. Now, this is actually the Let Kids Be Kids Official Information Act Substack post. So this is actually from July last year. So I'm just going to go through this again. So what it is we discovered through Official Information Act request that what had happened is Minister of Education Erica Stanford had actually sent a request for information really through to the Ministry of Education and had asked whether the RSE topics, so RSE is the whole thing, and then there's topics inside of it like identity, gender, relationships, are all the topics compulsory? And the Ministry of Education came back and said this: schools and kura have the flexibility to design their local curriculum, including their RSE curriculum. This means that while RSE is guided by the national curriculum, it will differ from school to school, and there are no compulsory topics that must be addressed. And I'm just going to go to the actual document to prove that. So this is the Ministry of Education sending this back, and you can see it in the second bullet point here. That's what we quoted. There is no compulsory topics that must be addressed. Now, I've been saying that since for almost a year now, and I still find that a lot of people aren't hearing it, and a lot of teachers and things don't know this. So they say it's got to be all compulsory. So I'm putting it out there again. It's been in our previous videos, but currently as things stand, there are no compulsory topics within RSE. So given that that doesn't seem to be put in headlights anywhere,
okay,
Erica has done a few things. Like she's gone on to Jack Tame's Q&A, and she does mention there that it's not compulsory. But by and large, what we're finding at the grassroots is that teachers are telling parents that the topics are compulsory. They're not saying that they can't opt out, but they're saying we have to teach these things.
I think I'm just starting to get it now. Because they'll tell you it's compulsory, and you've just made a point that it says they can make what they want to make.
Yes, and that they can make it. They can write it all themselves if they want to. They don't have to use a pre-prescribed thing.
So therefore, compulsory is BS.
Well, compulsory means
Well, it's BS if they've made it up themselves.
Well, it is BS because they're saying the relationship and sexuality area of learning is a compulsory part of the health curriculum, but none of the topics inside of it are compulsory, which means that they can put whatever they want in, which means that without even going through this big review, if that was put out in lights, then all the schools and all the teachers and all the parents that don't want to learn about gender ideology would just kick it to the road.
Right.
Okay.
Because if parents have anything to do with what's taught at the school, they'll say, well, we get to choose what's put here, so take it out.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's a whole nother conversation I'm not going to go through today, which is the consultation process is flawed. So under the guidelines that have just been removed and is that the schools have to consult every 2 years. They're doing that in a wishy-washy way, some of them aren't doing it at all, and some of them are doing it. When they do the consultation, it doesn't change what they put into the class. So if you had all the parents at a school going to a consultation and saying, we're okay with most of it, but can you please remove gender ideology? They'll go, oh, thanks for your feedback, but we're going to do it anyway.
Because it's compulsory.
Because they think the topics are compulsory. That's what I'm trying to get to. And so
Right.
you see where I'm going,
but
right?
it's not. In terms of what they choose to put in.
Well, and I mean, it shouldn't be anyway. Ideological stuff shouldn't be compulsory. But on the Ministry of Education's own documents, they say there are no compulsory topics. So we have to, I just keep banging on about that. I'm going to show you now a couple of examples that we've had from school teachers to parents in the last couple of weeks. So we're talking, the big hoo-ha was the current relationship and sexuality government guidelines are gone now. And now we're in this draft process for a while. And so to me, that's kind of no man's land, if you like.
So it's a real transition time.
Well, it is and it isn't, and we're going to go through that a bit more. But the first thing that they should be aware of is that they go back now to what they call the 2007 guidelines, which we're going to look at later. But I just want to show you what's actually going on because... So the first email that we're looking at here is from a high school teacher to a parent, and this was only just last week. Okay, so it's just to show that even though the current guidelines are gone now, the message hasn't changed. So it says the learning in our health education program during term 2 will be focused on relationships and sexuality education. Cool. The learning covered is designed from the current New Zealand curriculum documentation, emphasis mine by the way, and age-appropriate guidelines. This unit is supported through resources such as the revised and respected Navigating the Journey book. Now, we are not aware that they have recently revised it. Since, like, if you're following our work and you want to go back and you find out that Navigating the Journey are the resources that your kids are using, getting on them at school, we've got a lot of videos and Substacks and information showing examples of that. Rodney Hyde has talked about it. We showed some examples in our roadshow. We've been going on about it for a long time. So it's one of the programs that are in school.
Right.
So this letter is saying it's revised and respected, which kind of would make parents think, if they're aware of the REC guidelines being gone, that they've taken out the bad stuff. But there hasn't been a change to the resources. Okay, so then it says here, the topics that will be taught are listed below: identity, communication, healthy relationships, consent, and safe sex. So they seem to be the same 5 topics that were in it prior to the so-called change and removal going on.
And if what you mean is by the resources haven't been changed either, then teachers who are sort of just going to revert to what's easy to teach because they did it last term and the term before are going to go, well, our resources are still here so we can carry on, right? Because they won't have been given the memo that things are being overhauled or that they should think to do anything differently.
Yeah, I mean, if teachers have been given a memo that's been really helpful for them, we'd love to see it. We haven't been shown it. But unless a parent knows and goes in and challenges them on it with the data, such as the OIA, and actually says to them, look, you don't need to do this stuff, then I feel like we have an opportunity. Parents have got an opportunity right now to go in and help to support and educate teachers and go, here's the data, here's the OIA, here's the changes. Let me help you to understand what can go to get back to what they're saying is the 2007 curriculum, which I'll show you soon. So what schools do, what some of them do, and you look at this 5 bullet point list here, is they're very brief in how they say what actually, when you unpack it, is quite a lot of stuff. So, for example, identity, which Elizabeth Cave talks about, that why are we even teaching about identity? Kids are just kids, and why do they have to align with certain things? So the whole concept
it's
of
totally
that,
redundant, and all it does is just open up a crack in the brain to think something's wrong.
Yeah, it does. So that whole thing needs to be called into question. But it's potential that in that little bullet point of identity could be gender identity, and you could be one of 100 genders. So,
but moreover, if you're supposed to be living in a society which is welcoming and accepting of all different kinds of diversity, why do we need to focus on one category and another bucket and another category and another type? It's just like, it's irrelevant because we just accept that you are as you come.
Yeah, why do we have to keep putting each other in tiny little boxes and categories of age, stage, gender, sex, race, belief?
Well, actually, race is a good example because it's a little bit like the race identity debate and the wars that come out of hyper-focusing on race.
That's right.
I mean, you know, respect your lineage and your ancestors, but why are we hyper-focusing on it? We're living in a society together of diversity of people, so it just doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter, and it doesn't produce a healthy society to be finger-pointing and going, well, you're different to me because you're wearing that. It's like, well, actually, you and I, we bleed the same blood. We're all here in this space together, and we need to work together. So the whole identity thing is, needs to be unpacked and investigated the way that it's being taught. It's not to say that we don't have an identity, we do, but why do we have to keep banging on about it with kids who are just kids? Let kids be kids, like literally, So anyway, all I'm saying there is that they have these bullet points that seem quite innocuous. So it's all about looking at the words, but this could be stuff hidden in. So parents that kind of know would get this email and say, can you tell me a bit more about what's in there? What are you actually telling them when you're telling them about consent? And then some teachers they'll send you the videos that they're going to show, and they send the activities, and some won't, which I'll show you in a minute.
What do you think of that last line there? An alternative program of learning will be designed for your child during this time if you prefer not to have, let me bring that up again, not to have your child involved in the entirety or part of the learning. Isn't that somewhat doesn't that make them end up feeling shit for being excluded?
Mm-hmm,
It's sort of like, here's your out, but it'll be a real painful out.
So yes, I think that too, and I mentioned that when I was on the News Talk ZB little video the other day where I rang in, as I said, there's a societal pressure here, like a peer pressure thing, where if this is not in line with a family's values and beliefs, and they want to opt the child out, which they can do by law, the parents that I talk to and the kids are saying they are sometimes treated like, they're being excluded, and so they're actually, they could be being bullied. But it could also work the other way. So we've also had stories where a kid gets pulled out of class because they don't want to do this, and then the other kids are like, how do I get that done? How do I get pulled out of class too, because I don't want to go through this? So
if your kid's got the guts to do it, and you've reared a child with the sense of being a little bit pig-headed and thoughtful so that they can actually know themselves, there's a good side to that. And if they have the guts to be a leader and go, I'm not doing this, the others are going to jealously look at it and go, oh, how can I get out of this?
Well, it's up to the parent to opt the child out. So all the parent needs to do, if they want to opt out, and they might know what's in there and they might not opt out. So we've got some parents in our network who want the kids in there anyway, either to see what's going on or because they want the child to be involved. So that's all fine. But the whole point is that it comes down to the parent choice. When you're talking about a minor, do you want your child exposed to this or not? So it's not even the child's choice, unless the child says, hey, I really want to do it and I really don't want to do it, and then they have to have that conversation. So it really comes down to the parent and the child. together, but building a relationship and going, do you want to do this? Do you not want to do this? Do you know you can go to the class, but hey, by the way, when they start talking about 100 different genders, remember there's only 2 biological sexes. And we have parents saying that, like basically washing the indoctrination off their kids at the end of the day and saying, that what you're learning at school ain't true, right?
It's kind of bollocks.
So that all comes back down again to the parent-child relationship.
So do you imagine that a parent wanting to bring this up with their child and go, hey, look, little Johnny, do you want to go through this and have that discussion? Like you've just said, it's up to them to have that discussion with their child. Then is the resources and the things they're going to teach made available to the parent, so the parent can go, well, let's look at this together, Johnny, at home, after school at 4 o'clock. Do you want to be taught this stuff, mate? Because is that even possible for them to do that?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because that brings me on to the next email. Because we talk about this a little bit, where sometimes parents are asking for the information to see what's in class, and they get told that they can't because of certain
copyright.
things. So
that copyright. Example.
So this is year 10, and again, this was only last month.
We can teach it to your children, but we can't show it to you because of copyright.
Yeah. So it says we're emailing to say that we're actually not covering the sexuality part of health until term 3, and we'll let people know closer to the time. So the response from the parent was, last year we were provided with a PowerPoint and a copy of the workbook section so that we could assess the actual content, which is what I recommend that parents do, right?
Okay, so they are actually able to do this.
Some do and some don't, but
Right.
just keep watching. As you would understand, bullet points leave a lot to the imagination. So that's like what I just said before in the last one.
Yeah.
So basically it's a parent with a consciously going, I just want to dig a bit deeper here, and they know that they have the right to.
What a well-written response. Bullet points really do leave a lot to the imagination.
Yeah, and the reason I'm showing this is to empower parents to say, there are lots of parents out there writing these sorts of letters. You won't hear about it from school, but, take this on board and use it yourself if you want. So the reply from the teacher was, the child can absolutely bring home a copy of the workbook once they become available. As for the PowerPoint, this is a teacher-developed resource and considered intellectual property of the school, so we are unable to share that, sorry. And we've talked to lawyers about this, and it's total BS.
Yeah,
but
of course.
they're saying, a teacher has created a PowerPoint in class, and under intellectual property, the parent can't see it. I'm sorry, but the parent's not going to steal it and run down the road and give it to their competitor.
Yeah.
Right? They need to know what's going to be taught in class, because some of the videos that are out there, that particularly part of the Navigating the Journey, are really graphic. So they want to know, is that video going to be shown or not? Because if it is, I want my kid out. If it's not going to be shown and you can show me that what you're doing aligns with my family values, I'll happily leave my child in the class.
Yeah.
They've got the right to know.
What age are these kids at?
Well, they get a sex ed type program from age 5.
Right, okay.
But these ones here that I'm showing you, the first one was year 9, I think, and this one's year 10, which is
what age?
13 and 14.
So
junior
these
high.
13 and 14-year-olds are allowed to have electronic devices in the class, right?
A lot of them
Like
have
laptops. And
a lot of them are on electronic devices in the class.
one of them's going to record it. One of them's going to turn their voice memo on, and then they're going to have a dictation of it transcribed, and someone's going to send it to you for sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Do that. That's a good idea.
That's one way to find out.
So then the parent says, how can I make an informed decision if the RSE content is suitable for my child if I can't view part of the material? Can you please tell me what resources you use to compile the PowerPoint? Are you using Navigating the Journey or Inside Out, for example? And the teacher comes back and says, yes, we have some activities in our program from Navigating the Journey and Inside Out. So those are the 2 red flag ones that we sort of call out. So they were able to get out of the teacher that, yes, they're in there. So the parent probably went back and was like, given that you're not giving me the detail, but you are telling me you're connected with those organisations, it'll be a no from me, and I'll be opting my child out, which they can do under Section 51 of the Education and Training Act.
Yeah, right.
See how hard parents are having to work?
That's quite a bit of work.
So then it says here, our program is developed around, and this is important, the curriculum's key competencies, and our ethos is that we deliver education that enables students to develop healthy relationships. Great, but the rest of the things in the child's life also can work towards that too. To become positive in their own identities again, and to develop competencies for promoting and sustaining their own well-being and that of others as directed by the RSE from the Ministry of Education. So you see the language there, it's making it sound like it's compulsory.
Yeah, but we know that from the 7th of December 2023, you're making this shit up.
Well, it's
how
all
you want
in
it to be.
It's all in the detail of the words.
Yeah.
So they're saying they're directed. So yeah, they were told what this gold standard is.
Yeah.
But in amongst that, there's no compulsory topics.
I mean, it's compulsory. They've got to teach it, Right. They've got to do it, but how they make it up is up to them. And so in terms of the resources they're supplied, which are loaded full of ideology, now it's the ideology of the teacher who gets to decide which bits they show.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're getting at here. And unfortunately, what we have found is that some teachers are ideologically captured and they think that this is a good thing to be teaching this stuff, even if the parents are not okay with it. And some teachers really struggle thinking that they have to teach this stuff. And sometimes all it takes is a parent or two to go in and say, hey, and they can pull it.
So now it's parent-teacher days, and you've got to interview the teacher that's ideologically captured and decide, like you were trying to hire them for a job, whether they're someone you want to work with?
Well, for a lot of, and even when my kids were going through school, parent-teacher interviews became a very short 10-minute thing where the child was all prepped and ready to go to do a show and tell. So there was very little time for actually asking questions. And I talk to parents now, and maybe it's because of role sizes or something, but I think they're even shorter than 10 minutes now. And literally there is no opportunity to dialogue.
Well, what do you mean show and tell? I've not got a child that's at that age. So what are they? Don't you talk to the teacher and the teacher says, well, little Johnny's doing pretty well in math, but his reading skills are a bit behind, so you want to give him some homework. Isn't that how it goes?
Well, that's what it used to be like when my kids were little, but I know by the time my kids were at high school it was very much a, hey mum, this is the project I've been doing and look at me and look at me. So it was very child-centered, so the child had to, and it might not be like this in every school, but the child was providing information to the parent to show what they had been done. And so there was very little time to have a conversation. And I always find it really hard. I had one that struggled a little bit, and I don't want to have some conversations in front of him. I need to actually talk to the teacher about that because it's just kind of making him feel stink.
All right, so this is like 6-minute visits at the doctor's.
Yeah, it is. And so it might not be adequate to be able to have these conversations.
Right.
So, yeah, you'd need to be dialoguing with your school, having emails, making a meeting. And again, people are busy, so a lot of people it's all just too hard. So that's why we do what we do to try and sort of make it a little bit easier to understand what's going on. So added to that, when they're saying that you can choose what you're teaching, and then I talk about the navigating the journey resources as what most schools are choosing to teach. What I just want to quickly show you is a clip that Navigating the Journey put out on their Facebook page maybe a week ago. So you're talking the end of term 1 when the current guidelines were removed. So let's have a look at what she says. And by the way, I've added in the graphics on the side.
So you might have heard that the Relationships and Sexuality Education Guidelines have been removed by the Ministry of Education. And there are a lot of people out there wondering what this actually means. So schools are still required to teach the 2007 curriculum, and that includes relationships and sexuality education. The guidelines were an additional document that gave extra support and information to schools about how to integrate that curriculum into their school community, including how to integrate a whole school approach. When you're in the classroom, you can continue to deliver your relationships and sexuality education, and you should. It's really important that young people, right from primary school through secondary school, are still learning about these essential topics about relationships and sexuality. If you need additional support or guidance, please get in touch with Sexual Wellbeing Aotearoa. We can support you in how best to implement the curriculum in your school. Our Navigating the Journey program, which has lesson plans for years 1 to 10, is still available, and it aligns with the 2007 Health and Physical Education curriculum. You can join our online forums for school leaders and separate forums for primary school teachers and secondary school teachers. We have community health promoters based around the country who can come into your school and provide professional development or work with you to implement Navigating the Journey or the curriculum in other ways.
So you can see why we needed to look at that, because she's saying that their content still aligns with the 2007 curriculum, but I've just shown you the outline of the 2007 curriculum.
She's scrambling to cover us. She's like, oh God, everyone's finding out. Oh no, the world's realizing. So no, you can still teach her. You can. She's desperate. You can tell.
Well, I look at it more from a business strategy point of view. So they get lots of money from the government. They put lots of money into these resources. They have people all around the country doing.
They know
this
they're
stuff.
about to lose something if they don't keep this going.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
But I don't know whether the current system in the government is going to get this gone. So they might not be worried. They might just be more aware that parents are waking up.
Yeah, I love the way you added those extra graphics to showing actually the curriculum. That is mind-blowing.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about this, one of the best places to go and have a look at it on Let Kids Be Kids is to go to our YouTube channel and the recent videos with Rodney Hyde, because he's been banging on about this relationship and sexuality education, dealing with his daughter's school for a while, and they wouldn't let him go and talk to the board and record it. Yeah, and he's got an interesting story about it. So you're comparing what these young ideological, by the way, probably not a mum, probably not having a kid go through the system.
There's no way. She's going to see this and she's going to put out another one because she'll have to react to this. No, we're not desperate, which will just further prove they're desperate.
Maybe. I mean, they may not even notice what we're doing because we're in completely different worlds. But the other concern that I really have about the navigating the journey people is that my understanding is what a parent would call innocence, they call naivety.
Oh, that's dark, isn't it?
It's very dark.
Yeah.
Right? So if you've got kids that are innocent because they're just kids, letting kids be kids, they're calling that naive and they're saying kids need to learn all this stuff.
Naive as in, you just don't know.
Yeah, you're naive because you don't know that there's 100 genders. Yeah. Actually, they just haven't been ideologically messed with yet.
Oh, that is so dark.
It's dark, eh? So I'm just going to move on now to the Ministry of Education's website. They're talking about changing the curriculum, and all I'm really wanting to do here is to point out that they're actually changing the whole multiple aspects of the curriculum. I can't say whether it's all the curriculum. About the national curriculum for schools is the foundation of our education system, and all I wanted to pull out there was that it's saying all state and state integrated kura and schools must use the national curriculum, okay? So just bank that one.
Right.
And then it says changes to the national curriculum. Our national curriculum has been in place since 2007, and that's when the RSE guidelines have gone back to, when they removed the current ones. And we need to make some changes. So what I just wanted to call out here was actually a couple of the terms that I see popping up all the time, and I want some people to maybe contact us and talk about what their analysis of these words is. But I keep seeing the word knowledge rich pop up. And I did do some analysis of this myself, which I'll cover another time. But knowledge rich doesn't necessarily mean factually correct. It just means there's going to be lots of information. That's my understanding of it. And I'm not a trained teacher, so I'm just going to say that I'm looking at this from a parent's point of view now that I'm a little bit more suspicious of the glossy words. Knowledge rich sounds like it's going to be full of knowledge and facts, but it's actually just lots of information.
Well, it sounds a little bit like multimedia, which really is just lots of stuff.
Yeah. So because I know, and a lot of parents are realising, that a lot of the stuff in the current school curriculum across the board is dictated by, or influenced by at least, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And boy, do they have a lot of really professional, amazing looking resources. Let's take the climate stuff, for example. Kids are getting it shoved down their throat and it all looks very fancy, so therefore it must be true. Maybe it's just knowledge rich. Maybe there's just lots of information. Maybe it's not true. So I just want to put that there as a question around knowledge rich. Every child learns content, so they're provided with information that is purposeful, specific, clear and connected between their years of learning. So that means scaffolded, which is what we see in the Navigating the Journey resources. Why are that? When we used to have puberty talks at intermediate school, why are they scaffolding it up from 5 years old? So that's what they're talking about there. Connected between the years of learning is scaffolded learning. But it still doesn't mean that it's quality learning. It just means they're drumming it into them.
Yeah, it just means the programming starts inch by inch at a very, very young age.
Yeah. So the next bullet point there is that, again, it says it's well sequenced. So that's nice if you trust the material, but it's just saying it's building on each other. So then if you were to, and I'm not saying this about the whole curriculum, I'm just putting the question out there, if you were to try and convince somebody of something, this is quite a good way of doing it because it's sequential, it's scaffolded, it's building blocks, right? So it says here, every child learns knowledge in a well-organised and logical order. That's what their goal is. They want the children to learn in a very systematic, militarised way. Okay? That's what they're saying there. And then this is one that just keeps jumping out at me. Grounded in the science of learning. It's not science. So it's not grounded in science. It's grounded in the science of learning, which is okay if that's good science. when you say, for example, with the RSC that they have to learn all these things, but what they're actually doing is buying resources off the shelf from a third party, or dropping in a video that someone else has created. So even if the teacher is creating their own PowerPoint presentation, they're actually just pulling documents, resources and videos from other people. And we've proven that this stuff is paid and funded by New Zealand On Air with Shortland Street actors, not necessarily experts, but actors, which is influential for the children. We have to start unpacking the quality of the content being taught and be a little bit critical of that, given that we're in this pickle that we're in. Right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, you're watching a public-private partnership where there's all these companies, organisations and charities who write these resources who are the so-called experts, but we're questioning them because they seem to be causing harm. Kids themselves say that they're causing harm. So when they say grounded in the science of learning, that could be learning about scaffolding and things, but it still isn't saying that the content is scientifically correct. Right?
And trust me, actors on Shortland Street don't know much.
Anyway, what I just want to last show on this is it talks about why they're changing the curriculum. I'm just going to click in here to the New Zealand curriculum and just moving away from the sex education topic. So this is all about the new stuff that's coming up in the New Zealand curriculum. And I just have to show this because it's crazy. The New Zealand curriculum. Ministry of Education's New Zealand curriculum, and you can go and have a look at all the different learning areas. I'd recommend any parent who's got some time and is concerned about the education system, you can actually go and have a look at some stuff. But what jumped out at me was the food pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Far as I'm aware, the people that are into nutrition know that this is an incorrect analysis of what we should be intaking dietary-wise.
Sure.
So why is it still in the school curriculum?
It's a lot of bread down the bottom.
So this is the old-fashioned nutritional guidelines, which says that at the bottom of the pyramid, 30% of your daily intake should be bread, cereals and pasta. Well, I actually lived like that most of my life, and I was very overweight, and I couldn't work out why, because I was doing what I was told. And I wasn't eating fat because I thought fat was bad, and you'll see on here fat's right at the top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
It's kind of upside down, and I'm only calling this out because what I'm saying is they're saying they have a knowledge-rich curriculum, lots of information.
But potentially lots of wrong information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who still eats like that. Why on earth is it still in the curriculum? It's what's creating our sickness system of people being unwell. So that's just an example of why I'm asking these questions, and unfortunately gives parents more work to do. So I'm just going to look now at the 2007 Health and Physical Education curriculum. So this is when the big announcement that the current relationship and sexuality education guidelines have been removed, while they're going through this big consultation process and draft plans and all the hoo-ha, which actually means that this is in limbo until 2027, they've gone back to the 2007 curriculum.
Right.
So I'm just going to show what this is. And again, the reason is not to dive in deep to the detail. It's to show parents that there's an opportunity here for them to understand what's going on and just take their power back. So people can go and have a look at it themselves, and the link will be provided below. What I want to call out here is I've just got some things in red. So it goes from level 1 up to, I think it's level 8. So I've put the year groups there so that people can understand what they're looking at. So what is physical education? Positive feelings in your heart will enhance your sense of self-worth. So what I did with this was I literally went through and I highlighted in red anything that seemed to be like the sex ed part or relationship and sexuality part of what we're currently dealing with.
Right.
Because this is the whole health curriculum. So it's about motor skills and it's about team sport and all the other cool things, right?
Yeah. Personal
growth and whatever. So I was just trying to find some key things where I think that it's people who might say that what they've got currently is relevant because it was okay in 2007, and I just want to show. So for the little e's, there's just the word identity once. There's nothing about sexual stuff or anything. For level 2, so they had 4 topics, personal health being one of them. I couldn't really find anything in that would pertain to the sex ed stuff that we're talking about. Under relationships with people, there isn't really much that would be contextualised into the sex ed stuff. For 9 and 10-year-olds, there's something about managing changes under personal growth and development. So that would indicate pubertal changes, okay? So
Sure.
that's totally cool.
Seems reasonable.
Yep, well, that's common sense. Yep. And under relationships with other people, there's nothing in the wording here that would lead you to contextualizing it to being, say, relationships in a sexual manner. It's just relationships, just getting along, right?
Okay.
This is the innocent 2007 version is kind of what I'm saying.
Right.
So then you go to the 11 and 12-year-olds, and that's actually where you've got most of it in 2007, because that's usually where people, where kids would have their puberty talk. So you can see there under personal growth, characteristics of pubertal change and discuss positive adjustments. So how to, be all good about puberty. Personal identity. So that's when they start talking about social messages and stereotypes, which is interesting. Back in 2007, they were already talking about stereotypes, which I feel like they've sort of turned that into being quite an extreme thing, where the narrative is that, unless you're a boy or unless you're a girl, you could be born in the wrong body. Yeah. But so back in 2007, maybe the word stereotype didn't mean that at all. So we could kick it to the can. That's kind of what I'm saying, right? And then they talk about relationships, and that's where you see some of the words coming in, where you talk about things like discrimination, which is what they keep going on and saying, well, these trans people are discriminated against and stigmatized and marginalized, and that's all the words. So what I'm saying here is, if they're using the current material, they could go, well, we're covering that because we talk about the discrimination of the trans people, so we can still cover that. In 2007 they said that was okay, but I don't think that the intention of that word back then would have been what they've made it out to be today.
No, it seems to have morphed a bit.
Yeah. So then you've got your high school here, so 13-year-olds, and they start talking stuff a little bit more. But you can see here that there's not a big push specifically for a whole lot of stuff that we're concerned about. So people can go and have a look at that as their sort of overview, which is very different to the 2018 one, which is a bit more prescriptive. Okay, so it's just saying they can demonstrate an understanding of how attitudes and values relating to different people to difference influence their safety and that of other people. So it's just getting into kind of interpersonal relationships, which still could be used in a context that doesn't need to be sexual. And we are aware that they'd need to know stuff. I'm not saying that to get it gone, because the kids are living in a totally different world. So I'm not trying to say we all have to be like we were 300 years ago. What I'm saying is, a lot of the stuff that people are concerned about, if we go back to 2007, there's a good argument for it not being in there anymore.
Well, was 2007, in your opinion, a sweet spot of balance?
Well, I don't know, because I was just having little babies at that time. I didn't know how much was going on. So I would love to know from educational experts when they saw a shift. I talked to teachers and that saw a shift a long time ago with sex ed. I know someone who was at a very good school who has remembered that he saw a memo coming through from the Ministry of Education. I want to say it was around 2005 even. It was way back. Basically saying, starting the narrative of parents can't be left to be the ones to educate their kids for sex ed, and we have to do it. And he said that the staff was all just mortified by it. But a lot of those people might not be in the education system anymore for one reason or another.
Well, if those people reach out to you, whether they're in the system or not,
yeah.
What characterises, apart from we have to do it, not the parents, what characterises that shift? Is it the hyper-focus on identity, or is it, the whole you're born in the wrong body thing?
Yeah. What I'm actually worried about with the changes that they're proposing is that they're going to become more prescriptive. So when we talked about the scaffolding and we talked about them learning it year after year, I think what they're actually doing is saying, because it is really murky and no one really knows what's going on, we're going to tell you line by line what you're going to teach. You can still opt your child out, but there's probably going to be less negotiation. We're just going to tell you what it is that you're teaching. That's what I feel is going on. I'm very cynical about it. I don't feel like we're going to go back to what we were hoping that we were going to get out of this. There's no need for Inside Out to be in our schools or to be influencing our resources. So they're one of the organisations that we have some real questions about. We know that schools that have had them are sometimes not inviting them back. They get kicked back from the parents. They are an organisation that we raise an issue about quite a lot, and they're one of these organisations, and the lady who's the head of it, she was standing beside Benjamin Doyle when he did his press release in the Rainbow Room the other day. So they stand on that side of the fence where they say, if you dare criticise us, you're a homophobic, transphobic bigot. So that's why a lot
so
of people
they're spreading
can't
hate, essentially.
Well, they're spreading what I would
Well, it's
consider
certainly
to
division,
be
isn't it?
basically that they're so marginalised that you can't criticise or question us. And that's the concern, is like, well, actually parents whose kids have been affected by us, damn right they're going to question it.
Well, you know what controls you when you can't question something.
Yeah.
As soon as you're not allowed to talk about something or question it, then you know that that's what controls you.
And with the Inside Out, they're an outside agency that come in. We've heard stories that they will do an information evening for parents but not show them everything. They do it. They don't want the parents to know. And as soon as someone doesn't want you to know what they're going to teach your kid about sex,
Red flag.
Simple as that. It's really, really simple. It doesn't have to get much harder than that. You are the parent. Take your authority back. So that's what I just want to kind of finish on, is just going to our website, which is letkidsbekids.nz. And we have some resources for parents to help them. So we've got an opt-out letter template. So it's just a template. It's not hardcore. It's just like, if you need some help writing something. I mean, we showed you before what some of the messages in the emails that parents are writing. Parents are finding their authority back to go, actually, I've got a right to ask a question. They can put an Official Information Act request in if they want to, but it shouldn't need to be like that. It should be just a casual conversation of like, hey, you've told us that you're doing sex ed next term. Can you tell us what's in it? And the reason I showed the emails is that some schools are resisting telling them, but we have the right to know.
Okay.
And if they don't want to tell you, then that's probably a sign to maybe think about talking to your kids a bit more or opting them out. We also have something called a Notice of Parental Authority, and that is these are like parent-created resources, by the way. Right, so lawyers have had a look over them, but you take full responsibility of how you try and have the conversation. So the Notice of Parental Authority is, again, it's an opt-out of things like surveys, wellness checks, and any medication at school. And then we've also got another one that people might be interested in, because we've got Pride Week coming up in June, and this is run by Inside Out in the schools. And we have like a 3-step template on there, which is ask, tell, act, basically, which is ask the school if it's happening, and if not, thank them. If it is, then tell them what is really behind it. So we've got all that templated, and then say, well, please can you think about not having it in? And then they either say yes or no, and if they say yes, we're still going to have it, then the parent might decide to say, well, I'm opting my child out. They're not going to come to school that day, which raises a whole nother challenge, because you might find when you do that the child has an unjustified absence because the parent has chosen that their child is not to participate in an inside-out activity.
What does an unjustified absence mean? Something that affects their record of attendance?
Correct.
Oh, come on.
Yep.
So it's a real catch-22 for sure, because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't then.
Well, this is where it comes down to parental authority. Is it more important as a parent to have what the school would consider to be an unjustified absence, but you know that it's the right thing to do for your family? Or are you going to let the school dictate to you what they think is justified and unjustified for you as a family?
So keep a diary on your kids' activities, so that if you ever have to take it to some sort of mediation, you can say, well, you told us we could pull out of that. So you can't now use it against us, and it was done on this date and that date.
Yeah, so that's why emails are really good. Like, keep a copy of keep all your receipts. Like, say, well, I told you, I asked you. Like, this is the ask, tell, act thing. Is like, I asked you if that was in. I then told you what was behind it, ideological, political, stuff that is not what we send our child to do, to school to do.
Sorry, where is that on your site? The asked how.
It's that one there with the colours. Yeah, concerned about Pride Week. So that's the resource, but in it, it's a document where you can download it, but it's a 3-stage email basically.
Got it.
Yeah, and you can change anything. Like, there's literally just parent-led ideas to help other parents to get a bit more, confident about how to talk to schools. And
you mentioned before the one about medications was just above there, wasn't it?
Yep. So that's this one, Notice of Parental Authority.
Got it.
So that's just saying, hey, because in our previous videos we've shown that there's surveying done in school and a lot of parents are not aware of it. They weren't even given the option to opt their kid out. It's a pretty comprehensive set of resources, Ben. Well, these are the needs that parents are asking for, and they're asking for a lot more even. But, it's just hopefully parents will see that you're in charge of your kids. You're the parent of your child. The state is not, unless you let them be. And if you let them be, that is what's going to happen. And often parents don't want to know until it's too late, and it's kind of what happened to me. You know, you don't actually realise that the system is like that until it slaps you in the face.
Yeah.
And often by then it's too late, because your children have gone through this whole identity thing. They think that being self-determining is actually being oppositional to parents.
Right.
And they could be ideologically captured and starting to go to the counsellor and say, I'm born in the wrong body, and you might not know. So it really, really comes down to, at the moment, strong relationships with your kids, transparent conversations with your kids, and putting the school back in the box of being over there.
Yeah, there's the other
Not
thing
part
too,
of the family.
if they come to the counsellor and say I'm in the wrong body, but they're also surrounded by a bunch of other ideologically captured kids who support that,
Yeah.
then those brief moments in front of the teacher are reinforced by the entire time they spend with their friend group who ideologically sort of go along with this as well.
Yeah. And unfortunately, a number of teachers are ideologically captured as well,
Right.
because it's been coming through the system for a long time. And again, I say not all of them are. There's some really great teachers in there that are really struggling in a hurting system. And we hear those stories as well, and we want to support them, which is why we go in with asking questions and arming parents with like intelligent questions and intelligent emails like you saw. We're not terrible people who are anti anything. We genuinely just want the best for our own child, and we have the right to do that.
No, and you get a ton of teachers, I should say, who are supportive of what you're doing, who are horrified by some of the things they have to do that they don't really agree with either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is you don't know what you're dealing with until you go and start talking to them.
Yeah.
But I think as people are starting to see what's going on overseas and all of that stuff, and actually seeing that, well, there are more kids turning up in the counselling office, and there does seem to be more mopping up of mental health issues at school, whereas actually parents send their kids to school because they think that they're there to learn how to read and write and do maths. Schools used to focus on that, but the amount of money going into mental health services in schools is diabolical and tells you that there's a problem. And if they keep putting the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff by funding that without actually asking what might have gone wrong in the curriculum or in the environment at school or in the way that teachers are teaching, maybe we could have some better outcomes. Thanks, Stephen.
Cool, you're welcome.
See you again soon.